Gottlieb Haas was born in Prussia in the early 1800s. His name meant God's love. But growing up in that corner of Europe, Gottlieb may not always have felt that his name reflected the world around him, because this was a land that had been turned upside down by war. Decades earlier, Frederick the Great of Prussia had taken control of the region from Poland and encouraged German Lutherans from the Rhineland, including families like Gottlieb's, to settle the newly acquired territory. And so, while our Simon Haas ancestor from our earlier family story had traveled west, leaving the turbulent Rhineland for a new life in America, Gottlieb's branch of the family had traveled east, seeking opportunity in the new Prussian territories. But peace did not last. Napoleon's armies swept across the region, leaving behind occupied villages, damaged farms, and families struggling to rebuild their lives. After Napoleon was defeated, life slowly began to change. Gottlieb married Caroline. They had 7 children. One of their youngest was Ernst Haas. The family farm could not support every child, and Ernst wasn't going to inherit it. So Gottlieb helped his son learn a trade. Ernst became an apprentice to a local tailor. It was practical work. It required little capital to begin, little more than needles, thread, shears, and skill. After completing his training, Ernst traveled from farm to farm, sewing new garments and repairing old ones. But there was a catch. Ernst's livelihood depended almost entirely upon the fortunes of the farmers around him. When the harvest was good, families had money to spend. When the harvest failed, there wasn't much left for the tailor. Still, Ernst worked hard. His business grew. Eventually, he was able to open a small shop of his own. And then he married his childhood sweetheart, Bertha, or Bertie. Before long, they welcomed their first son, Otto. Ernst seemed to be building exactly the kind of life his father had hoped for him. A wife, a child, a trade, a business of his own. And then, everything changed. Cheap grain from America began flooding European markets. Prussian farmers couldn't compete, and their incomes tumbled. But that wasn't the only threat. Factories could now mass-produce garments more cheaply than Ernst could make them by hand. Ernst was being squeezed from both directions. His customers had less money, and factory clothing was undercutting the very trade which his family depended. So, Ernst and Bertie had a choice: stay and struggle, or leave everything behind and begin again. Bertie's sister and her husband had already emigrated to America and were doing well. They were living in Chicago, a booming industrial city with an enormous German population. The city's garment industry was thriving, and its large German community meant that a newly arrived immigrant could find work, neighbors, churches, and businesses where their own language was spoken. And so, in July of 1887, 34-year-old Ernst Haas, with his wife Bertie, pregnant with their second child, and 3-year-old Otto beside them, left their parents, relatives, friends, and everything familiar to them for a place they had never seen. After reaching America, they made their way to Chicago, where Bertie's sister and brother-in-law helped them get established. Ernst quickly found work with a local tailor. And just 5 months after their arrival in America, Bertie gave birth to their second son, William Bill Haas, our great-grandfather. And somewhere else in Chicago that same year, another child was born, a little girl named Matilda, Tilly. Our future great-grandmother. Her family had its own immigrant story. Tilly's father, Frederick, had come from Danzig in Prussia. He had been a sailor aboard a German merchant ship, which was rather remarkable considering the family story that he couldn't swim. And according to that same family story, When Frederick's ship docked in New York Harbor, he jumped ship. Somehow, he eventually made his way west to Chicago, where relatives helped him begin his own American life. Ernst and Bertie had another child, Elsie. Ernst was able to open a shop of his own. They bought a house and were living the American dream. But once again, life changed without warning. Bertie contracted tuberculosis, and after a brief illness, passed away. Bill, Otto, Elsie, and Ernst were devastated, but slowly they found a new normal. After a long while of being alone, Ernst met Anna, a German immigrant who had recently arrived in America. They married. Life appeared to be settling down again. And then Europe went to war. When World War I began, Germany was widely portrayed in the American press as the aggressor. For millions of German Americans, the atmosphere gradually became uncomfortable. Many stopped speaking openly about their homeland. Neighbors who had lived beside one another for years began looking at one another differently. Then, in 1917, the United States entered the war against Germany, and suspicion turned into hostility. German Americans suddenly found themselves being asked implicitly and sometimes explicitly. Speaking German in public could be viewed as unpatriotic. German language and culture were suppressed in many communities. People who had spent decades building lives in America could suddenly be regarded as potential spies, saboteurs, or even traitors. And in a city with one of America's largest German populations, tensions in Chicago could become frighteningly personal. Just a few houses from where the Haas family lived was a German-born neighbor who had spoken openly against the war. One evening, a mob came for him. He was forced from his home, made to kneel, and compelled to kiss the American flag. For Ernst, the hostility soon reached his own doorstep. His tailor shop was vandalized. Customers stopped coming. The business he had spent years building could no longer provide enough income for his family. So Ernst did what he had done throughout his life. He adapted. He returned to working extra hours at his old job simply to make ends meet. Eventually, the war ended, and ordinary family life slowly returned. The children grew, careers developed, and the next generation moved further into American life. Ernst, who had seen enough changes to understand where the future was heading, told Otto and Bill not to become tailors. Otto eventually became a director of a company manufacturing barber razors and equipment. Bill found work as a clerk for a furniture manufacturer. Bill met a young woman at a Lutheran picnic, Tilly, and after a long courtship, they were married. A year later, their first child was born, Millie. Ernst and Anna had two daughters, Hertha and Frieda. Bill and Tilly added two more children to their family, Fred, our grandfather, and Ruth. And then Ernst, who inherited nothing, who had crossed an ocean with Bertie for a better life for themselves and their children, who had started all over again, watched his first love pass, who had faced prejudice and strode on, eventually fell ill, and then was gone. Bill continued to move up and ultimately ran the furniture manufacturing company's plant. Bill and Tilly's family expanded with the addition of their third daughter, Shirley. And the children continued to grow. Fred, our great-grandfather, who the family story says he had too much fun in his early teens, was sent off to complete his education at a military school. He married our grandmother, Anne Matusek. Anne's parents were Al Matusek and Josephine Reckermacher. Josephine's parents came from Bavaria, Germany, and had been prominent beer brewers for generations. Their town of Eppenschlag became famous as it was one of the last stands of the German SS in World War II. One of their sons even started a brewery in the town of Auburn, California, during the gold rush. Soon after their marriage, our father, Fred Haas, was born. And then Aunt Sue. And then Uncle Bill. And finally, Uncle Tom. Our family aren't heroes in the way the word is used today. They're simply ordinary people who try to live good lives, work hard, be honest, treat others with kindness, love their husbands and wives, raise their children, protect and provide for them, and try to give them opportunities and experiences they didn't have. And when life knocks them down, they get back up. There is a quiet kind of heroism in that, because they do ordinary things that matter, day after day, for the people they love. It's the kind of heroism which carries from one generation to the next.
Coolers on the lawn, paper plates and roast. Auntie brought the peach pie and everybody knows. Kids running through the yard, shoes off in the grass. Grandma by the grill saying, honey, where you at? 15 stories at once and we all lean in. Same old jokes, new baby grin. The sun's still up and the night feels young. We came from a lot, but tonight laughing through the tears. Every little scar turns into a cheer. 15 stories at once, so we all lean in. Same old jokes, new baby grin. The sun's still up and the night feels young.